11 o'clock. Before this meeting, as a reminder, the public can call in or log on to listen to board meetings live. Please make sure to speak clearly into the microphone so that people listening online can hear. Presenters and any people testifying, please clearly state your name and position before starting. Okay, is there any public testimony on our items today?
Yes, Chair. Brooke Chapman de Sousa, College of Education, UH Monroe.
Good morning.
First, I would like to testify on behalf of Patricia Holiday. My name is Brooke Chapman de Sousa. I'm coming from the University of Hawaiʻi Manoa College of Education. First, I would like to testify on behalf of Patricia Holiday. She is currently at the American Educational Research Association conference, and she wanted me to send her regrets. She wishes she could be here today. But this is her letter. Dear Chair Cox, Vice Chair Griffin, and members of the Board of Education. I'm a professor and advocate of education and former BOE member and Vice Chair and Chair of the Student Achievement Committee 2014-2016. I would like to comment on item 4, update on board policy seal of biliteracy and multilingualism for equitable education. The BOE adopted the seal of biliteracy in June 2015 and subsequently adopted the multilingualism for equitable education on February 2016. Since the suite of languages policies passed, the HIDOE has been working to implement them in a deliberate and thoughtful approach. Charged with awarding the seal of biliteracy for this year's 2017 graduating class, the Hawaii Department of Education has worked diligently to identify criteria and assessments for common languages, coordinate art content for seal medal, and systematize the process. I appreciate the Hawaii DOE's attention in developing assessments for Hawaii and pursuing Filipino and Ilocano assessments. It is important to provide Filipino assessments because Filipino languages are the largest spoken home language of our EL students, followed by Micronesian languages. Similarly, the Hawaii DOE is making strides in addressing the multilingualism for equitable education policy with input from community focus groups and multilingual advisory council. While I appreciate the data gathering and HIDOE presentation on the current landscape and progress of each goal, I would like to see more detailed action steps of their 3-year plan referenced in the memo. Furthermore, I urge the Hawaii Department of Ed and Board of Ed to request categorical funding to support these innovative initiatives proven to advance the academic achievement and English proficiency of our EL multilingual students. Thank you for your time and consideration and opportunity to testify. And then my name again is Brooke Chapman de Sousa, and my work is with the College of Education. I prepare pre-service teachers to work with multilingual or English learning students. And I wanted to take a moment just to commend the Department of Ed related to their work on the multilingualism policy. Since the policy passed, I have seen frequent and purposeful communication between the community, the department, and higher education. There has been work with creating a consortium for research on multilingual learners. I think the positions that have been opened up for an ELL position and then separating the world language position from art is really an essential move that the Department of Ed is working on to make sure we meet the objectives of this policy. At this point, I would like to see a clearly articulated and formal commitment to hiring licensed teachers to work with our multilingual and English learning children. We have had conversations, and I think that's really good progress, but until we have something formal, it's hard for me to take that back to the College of Ed and say, okay, this is what the Department of Ed is doing. So just a clearly articulated plan on how we are going to provide high quality teachers for our language learners would be helpful. Thank you for your time.
Questions, board members? Okay.
by that?
What do I mean by?
High quality teachers, I mean, you have the college of education, inclusive teachers. I'm talking about someone beyond the license, having a specialty.
Yeah, I think it's critical for us to make sure we're meeting, our civil rights obligations to the kids that we have licensed teachers. Currently, that isn't articulated clearly that teachers working with our English learning students will be licensed.
Okay, so in the most recent strategic plan, we stated that our most vulnerable students should have, I don't know the exact word, but the idea was highly effective teachers.
Yeah.
That's our policy, that's our stated policy.
Yeah. So just so we can be clear, that highly effective means licensed. So there needs to be
Well,
something.
why do you say that? I mean, there is a difference between licensed, effective, and highly effective. So
Yeah.
because you understand that not a lot, but there's a percentage of teachers who are not licensed
Right.
because of the shortage
Yes.
of teachers.
Yes.
I mean, if there's a shortage, we could just snap our fingers and go to the license
No, but I think.
process.
But I think if the Department of Ed, it's an important goal because the research does indicate that licensed teachers have the outcomes, the learning outcomes are improved when you have licensed teachers.
What I'm trying to get at though is everybody agrees we want licensed teachers. But
Yeah.
there's only so many. So I
And
don't understand the point of us making any statements. To my point.
so we know currently that there are principals who use PPTs instead of teachers. And if there's not any sort of leverage or clear guidance, that can happen and go on. And I think the quality of services to our children is diminished when we use PPTs instead of licensed teachers, because they haven't gone through the same preparation program. And when there isn't something clearly articulated, all the other pieces of the system don't know how to react. So, for example, in the College of Ed, we would create more programs for license if we knew that was what the Department of Ed needed. And I think it would help us streamline our coursework and our pathways to preparing teachers. And I understand there's a shortage. We would need to have alternatives and we would need to have systems in place, a 5-year plan. But until we make a decision, everyone's kind of waffling. So,
Thank you.
Yes.
It's my understanding that a PPT, which is like an aid, has to work under the direct instruction of a classroom teacher. Are you telling us that that is not the case?
no, I do think that there is PPTs working under the direct instruction, but I think they have responsibilities beyond what's best practices for our English learning students. So I think oftentimes the PPTs will take the group of English learners and work with them on the side. And that is better than no services. However, it's a very complex endeavor of preparing our kids to learn English, and those adults need background in sociolinguistics, language acquisition, pedagogy, which they just don't have.
But these PPTs are dual language speakers. They're English speakers plus the language.
Yes. Right, and I don't want to diminish the importance of PPTs and our bilingual PPTs. They do serve a really important purpose, but I think we also need bilingual teachers who've gone through a preparation program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alika McNichol, UH Manoa, Kahakaula Ke'ekolen.
Morning.
Aloha kākou. My name is Alika McNichol. I am here to testify on behalf of the Kāka'ula o Ke'alikulani College of Hawaiian Language and the Ahopuna'oleo. I am testifying on the seal of biliteracy. The superintendent's report to Student Achievement Committee on the seal of biliteracy fails to include a distinctive pathway to obtaining the seal for schools taught through Hawaiian. For such Kaiapuni Hawaii schools, English is the world language studied parallel to how Spanish or French is studied in English medium schools. The superintendent's report includes no means for measuring English as a world language for Ka'iapuni Hawaiʻi students and Ka'iapuni Hawaiʻi schools. I propose that your committee establish a policy that awards the seal of biliteracy for students in Kula Ka'iapuni, both standard public schools and charters, when 1, they have a B average in their high school language arts courses, which are in Hawaiian, and 2, they demonstrate high-level proficiency in their world language, English, by having passed 8 years of study of English as a world language. Mahalo for your attention to this issue.
Questions?
Is this something that you want us to include in for the 2017 graduates for this year?
If that's possible, that would be great. But if not, for future consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Graham Crooks, Department of Second Language Studies, UH Manoa.
Morning.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. My name is Graham Crooks. I'm Chair of the Department of Second Language Studies, UH Manoa. My department are specialists in second language teaching and learning. We have been working in support of College of Air and Hawaii BOE on the topic of seal of biliteracy and training for teachers in this area. I just want to urge the board to continue to move forward. The seal of biliteracy is an excellent start. It helps us recognize English learners as for their strengths as multilingual, multicultural individuals, and the state needs to capitalize on the economic potential of these young people. So we look forward to seeing further action steps going beyond the establishment of the seal of biliteracy. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Questions, board? Thank you.
Amy Albayani, Friends, Hawaii Civil Rights.
Thank you. Chair Cox and members. My name is Amy Agliani, and I'm co-chair of the Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights. We strongly support these two policies. They're consistent with our goals for equal rights, non-discrimination, diversity and inclusion of all persons in our state and nation. Hawaii Friends for Civil Rights sees these policies as good policies that will help us implement civil rights laws and equal access. As a Filipino, I am also very concerned that Filipinos, who are the second largest group in the state, second largest group in the public schools, and the largest group who are who speak a language other than English at home, and are the largest of the ELL's learners. Our organization and many people in the community continue to be concerned about the continuing severe underperformance of EL students in the STRIVE 2015-2016 group performance report, which if you click on that blue thing, you can see the data. EL students are scoring 21% proficiency in ELA and 22% proficiency in math and 19% proficiency in science and 46% graduation rate. This is 10% below the ELA and math proficiency score in the 2014-2015 group performance. In order to address the achievement and opportunity gap, there must be strengthened services for EL families and students. We need professional development for teachers and appropriate categories of ethnic and language backgrounds of students. For the entire state of Hawaii, the statewide student scores cannot improve without the attention to this high need group. We need to continue to have metrics and data that separately identify Filipino and other ethnic groups for accuracy and to better implement any BOE student achievement efforts. I am very pleased to be a member of the newly formed Multilingual Advisory Council. The council has members and staff that are representative of and diverse languages and have a variety of expertise. I look forward to supporting DOE initiatives like dual language programs the Waipahu, Gira, Samoan, and Ilocano language program, and of course our Native Hawaiian language resources. With community support, additional funds, accurate data, and research-based efforts, I am confident that the multilingual policy will be implemented for this high-needs population so that we have a more equitable and inclusive state and nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Vanessa Ott.
Morning. Good morning, Board Chair and committee members, Committee Chair and committee members. My name is Vanessa Ott. I'm a former Department of Education teacher. I taught in a rural school in Hawaii, and I've been a community volunteer for the last 5 years. Wanted to address what the first testifier was, what she was talking about. I got my certification in 2005 from the California State University, East Bay, to become an elementary school teacher. They have in California something called BCLAD, which stands for Bilingual Cross-Cultural Language and Academic Development. And to get a teaching certificate, you also have to get BCLAD certification, which you can get through either the program of study or you can pass the test if you've already got a credential. But this instruction is specifically designed to teach teachers how to bridge that gap with English language learners. And I don't think anything like this exists yet in Hawaii. So it would be helpful if the University of Hawaii had classes that helped teachers get their BCLAD certification. And so I think that a BCLAD certification requirement in Hawaii would be very helpful, because there are certain techniques about teaching that someone who's been teaching for 30 years but never had this kind of training may not be aware of. And I think we definitely have a strong need for that in Hawaii. I also wanted to address the PPT and EA issue, because I've been volunteering at a local school in Honolulu. And what I notice is that to save money, instead of having an additional highly qualified teacher, they do use educational assistants and PPTs to do certain parts of the work. I'm not talking about PPTs who act as interpreters. I'm talking about the people who are in there instructing the students. And if the teachers have not had bilingual cross-cultural development training, certainly the EAs and the PPTs have not had that either. I am a little concerned that to save money, we use these folks who do not have training in teaching, because I've observed a few things that I don't think are best practices for some of these students. But I came along to volunteer to be a free tutor, and sort of ran up against the ego of the people who are like, well, we've been doing it this way for so long, you know, how dare you come in here and question this? But I have an education and some experience in teaching children. They have experience teaching children, but is it quality teaching? And I do call that into question, and it would be nice if the board had some kind of policy and we had the money to say, you're not going to have PPTs and EAs as a regular practice being the secondary teacher. We need qualified teachers teaching our children. Thank you.
Thank you. No further testimony at this time, Chair.
If there's no more public testimony, we'll move on to the approval of minutes. Approval of the minutes of April 4th. In your packets are the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
It's been moved and seconded, and all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. The minutes have been approved. We will now move on to the presentation of discussion items. And I just want to make sure that you understand these are not action items, that what we're having on these first two items is only for discussion. Starting with an update on the implementation of Board Policy 105-15, Seal of Biliteracy. I would like to call on Suzanne Mulcahy, Assistant Superintendent of the Office of Curriculum Instruction and Student Support, to introduce the presenter for this agenda item.
Good morning. I am Suzanne Mulcahy, Assistant Superintendent for the Office of Curriculum Instruction and Student Support, and with me I have Director Sandy Goya. Sandy Goya took over the responsibility of overseeing English language learners, multilingualism, and seal of biliteracy about a year and a half ago. I told her it would be for a couple months, and she is finishing her responsibility of seal of biliteracy with this presentation, and actually with the awarding of our first seniors to receive the seal. She is going to talk about the status of our seniors who will be receiving this for the first time in the Department of Education, including talking a little bit about the process we went through to design the medal. And she will also be covering a little bit about what may address some of the testimony today. So Sandy?
Good morning. I'm glad to be here again, a year later, again on the eve, apparently, of Cinco de Mayo, this Friday. So, thank you for having us. For those of you who are well familiar with seal of biliteracy, we know that the goal of the program is to establish an educational culture that values our love for diversity. So just wanted to give you a brief update of what we've done since last summer. So we were invited by Registrar Osatui from McKinley to present to the registrars last summer, and we have been able to keep our promises. One of the things the principals did ask us is that we did not put an additional burden on the registrars with the seal, as they were taking on the new SIS program. And so we have done that, but in the meantime, I have kept in contact with him. He's been very helpful in disseminating information and answering questions. So we look forward to that continued partnership. And we also started at that time the development of the seal of biliteracy transcript field, which was also one of our IOUs for this policy. In the fall, we distributed the seal of biliteracy application forms and guidelines to schools, and we also launched the seal of biliteracy logo contest. We shared that process with the Hawaii State Student Council, and they have served as our ambassadors in sharing information, and we look forward them to continuing that process. And we also finalized the decision for the school year 17-18 World Language Online Assessment. In spring of 2017, of where we are now, we did receive the final approval for the seal of biliteracy transcript field, and that is slated for June of 2017 completion. And I wanted to note, a call was also held this fall with other seal of biliteracy states. It was the first call of 12 states, and I want to give some kudos to the Office of Information Technology Services, because in other states, and states who started well before us on this process, they are going to be tracking their students still on spreadsheets, and for some of them, they are looking almost 2 years out to add us to the transcript. So for the fact that our department here was able to do it in less than a year, we're more than grateful for that. We reached out to students who took the AP World Language Assessments in their sophomore and junior year and had passing grades, so we sent them letters with also copies of the application, and in addition to that, a self-addressed sealed envelope. We also have been reviewing the seal of biliteracy applicant transcripts as well as applications, contacting high schools regarding presentations, and confirming the seal of biliteracy honorees. So what we wanted to let you know, which is very exciting, is we did receive applications from over a dozen schools statewide, and we had over 40 applicants this year. So we're quite happy about that. And you will be hearing about these confirmed candidates as well as honorees as we start presenting these seals to them. in presentations this month.
Sandy, could you explain a little bit about the fact that there are 40 who have applied, yet we know there are probably more students out there that we have not received applications from yet, and why that might be?
So for some of the students, when we reached out to them, we're doing a little chasing. So even though we gave them a self-addressed stamped envelope, either maybe they didn't receive it in the mail, even though it was their confirmed address, but certainly we've been very happy to contact their counselors and have them contact their students, and we've gotten a couple more. So that is why we're giving you an average number, because there's still a couple more in the making, and we're very happy that they're handing in their applications at this time. In regards to the seal, what I can tell you, because we will be unveiling this very soon, it is an artwork by a senior on Oahu. That person will receive, individual student will receive a $150 gift card, and their school will receive a computer for a teacher. It is actually a medallion in metal that has been imprinted. On one side it has the HIDOE logo. On the other side it has the graphic design artwork by the student. And it has the words in English, Hawaii Seal by Literacy, as well as in Hawaiian. And this is the part where I'm going to call really quickly to say it in Hawaiian. I practiced. I do not say it as nicely as he does. And that is Hawaii Seal by Literacy in Hawaiian. So we're very glad. And when we come time to presenting the medals, we'll make sure that we send you an email so you can see them as they're being presented. And as we come to this summer, there's still a lot of work to be done. We are going to be continuing our work with the Hawaii Language Roadmap Initiative on ways to highlight the Hawaii Seal by Literacy. I want to do a little shout out to Dr. Dina Yoshini, who's sitting in the audience, who's been very integral part of this process. She was the one who also connected the department with Dr. Pia Arboleta. And I'm going to read this. She is from the UH Manoa Department of Indo-Pacific Languages and Literatures Filipino and Philippine Literature Program, and was very instrumental in pulling together a team to work with a font assessment to make sure that we had the Tagalog assessment ready for the students next year. And that was in concert with other states. It started last summer and they finally finished this past spring. So we're glad that that will be available. In addition to that, and this is to Mr. DeLima is also concerned, we also have another connection with the UH professor of Ilocano, the Ilocano Language and Literature Program at University of Hawaii, who has agreed to also help us, and we'll be working with Yvonne on the Ilocano assessment. And what is not on this slide is we just found out about this last Thursday. They are also looking to work with us on a Korean assessment. And that was a concern that you had brought up last year. And when we looked into the SAT, it did not reach the standards for the ACTFL. So we wanted to make sure that the assessments that we had in place reached that standard. And we will then continue to network with other states, and we'll be sending out the official certificates to honorees and candidates. We will also be doing more to send out flyers to the seniors and juniors when they start the year, and try and do another flyer in the mid-year, just because sometimes students forget, and we want to make sure we remind them of this opportunity. In regards to the Seal by Literacy requirements for next year, and after I go through this, I will address some of the testimony in regards to this. We will continue to ensure that the students demonstrate a minimum overall of a 3.8 GPA upon graduation, that they will successfully complete the English requirements for Hawaii school graduation with a minimum 3.0 upon graduation. We still have the score of 3 or above on advanced placement, or above on the IB test. We will now have a score of 5 or above for the Bont Stamp 4S World Language online assessment, which is available in Arabic, Chinese, French, German, Hebrew, Hindi, Italian, Japanese, Russian, and Spanish, and also Tagalog and Vietnamese. And we also look forward to continue our work with Office of Hawaiian Education, who is working very diligently to ensure that we have a world language assessment for all level of Hawaii, actually, too. What was not listed here, and we've had some discussions about this, but we will be making sure it's available, is an assessment in American Sign Language. For the Avant assessments next year, we're going to be able to offer that to students at $20, which we feel is very reasonable. The American Sign Language proficiency assessments are upwards of $160, $140. So we want to make sure that we don't deter any students from taking it. So we're going to find a way to subsidize it to ensure that those students will only pay $20 also. And we made sure that we have the various equipment that's necessary, including the video, phones, etc. In regards to the testimony that was brought up, what we want to make sure is that, and I will reach out to the person who submitted the testimony, is that the requirement for the English requirements, we basically, we're using the language from the board's 102-15 graduation requirements language, but in no way does this prohibit a student who is attending a Japanese school from using the Hawaiian language arts courses towards that they're using already towards graduation. So there is no restriction on them. In fact, we made it as flexible as possible. So a student who is attending a Hawaiian immersion school, whatever courses they take towards graduation, we will accept that for the 3.0, but also give them the latitude to take an assessment, which we can make available from Avant, which is in English, but also be able, if they prefer, to take the Olelo language assessment. So we didn't want it to be that if you are at a Hawaiian immersion school, that because you might identify that as your base language, that you would then not be able to take that assessment. So we were making it as flexible as possible.
So do these schools know this?
So
I don't think so.
No. So we will add additional information to that. We have the same information that was here, actually up on the website since last year also. It was also in a memo that went out last fall. But I think as more folks are looking at it closer, they might have questions. So certainly we'll make sure that that communication gets out. And I also talked directly to Dr. Williams, so he's aware. And I spoke to his colleague also in the audience just to ensure. And we actually did have a lengthy conversation about that, but we didn't want to have separate requirements for students who were in language immersion schools and students who did not.
Just clarification, Sandy. Thank you for your work in this area. So is the goal for the class of 2018 to have access to the Ilocano, Tagalog, Korean, and Olelo Hawaiʻi?
So the goal is for, when we came last May, we said that we would work on making sure we had a Tagalog assessment. We'll then be working on making sure that we move very quickly on the Ilocano and the Korean, so that way it will be ready sometime next year, probably not in the beginning, but probably hopefully in the early spring.
But in time for them.
In time for them to take it, yes.
And how's about Olelo Hawaiʻi?
I actually, in terms of, I've been in touch with the Office of Hawaiian Education. I know that they finished their oral proficiency scale last year, and they're making sure that for next year that this will be in play. They're working on the final details, and we'll make sure that that gets out.
So for this year, all of these are not available.
Correct.
So what is available this year? Just can you refresh me?
Sure. So for this year, we have Chinese, French, German, Italian, Japanese, Latin, and Spanish.
So, as a reminder, when the seal was passed and we were trying to ensure that we could have graduates apply for the spring 2017, the fastest way to be able to operationalize that was to utilize the advanced placement or international baccalaureate tests that already existed, that students took as juniors or may take as seniors. While we worked on finding somebody who would develop the Ilocano test, because the vendors would not do it because we didn't have enough. We had to partner with another large state to get that to do. So rather than wait until 2018, we used what we had and then we are adding as we go along.
I think what the issue here for me is that we have failed to recognize and acknowledge that the Hawaiian language is the other language of the state of Hawaii. And I think we're doing a disservice to the kids that are in our immersion programs, in charter schools and immersion schools, who have to go ahead and not be recognized with the biliteracy thing this school year. I really think you folks need to address the implementation plan that you've worked out. I think it is not fair to the Native Hawaiian children in our school systems.
Well, the way the policy was written did include that it could be English or Hawaiian.
The
However,
policy
we
is not
didn't
the
have-
issue. It's the implementation that you've come up with for the policy. The policy is fine.
Right. However, we could not just manifest a test of reading, writing, and understanding Hawaiian, and so we are dependent on those people who are doing that, and unfortunately, they couldn't get it done by this year. So we do value that, and we do want to include the Native Hawaiian students and the students in immersion schools, and we wish that it could have been done faster. We are very hopeful and plan that it will be, in effect next year. Unfortunately, there wasn't something that we could just purchase.
Well, this is my understanding, and I may be off, is that we're saying kids that are having instruction in Hawaiian are going to have to take a test in Hawaiian like they've been instructed in English all this time. Instead of saying that they would pass an English test because that's their second language. So that was the point that I got. So I'm trying to figure out where we are with all of this.
Okay. So for students who are receiving their instruction in Hawaiian,
Right.
because now we have a bond, we are able to offer also an English assessment. So those students can take an English assessment. My fault, I didn't add it to the slide.
Okay.
So that is that. For students who are also at a Hawaiian language immersion school, they can take the English assessment, but they also have all the other variety of assessments they can also take. Through Avant, they can also take the AP if they would like to do that.
But how are they showing if they have taken Hawaiian through their schooling, like somebody at, for instance, like Aloha have taken English? How are they showing that they have mastered that? Are they having a 3.0 in Hawaiian like they have a 3.0 in English? It seems like there's an extra step here in the way it's being communicated, but I don't think that is the way it is.
So in terms of when we had discussions about this, as we were coming towards this, in schools, certainly where they are a immersion school, we weren't asking them to prove or to justify that their Hawaiian language arts courses were so. They were going to take that and use that as their evidence, and then they could go ahead and take an assessment in another language.
I got you. We're just trying to make sure that all of those kids are being treated fairly. That's all we're trying to figure out. So we have someone. Yes, please come.
Right, so basically, well, I mean, you're going to hear later on today. Oh, okay. So you're going to hear later on today, we're racing down the road to be able to accommodate all these things. So there's two issues. There's immersion school issue, and then there's the kids that are in high schools learning Olelo Hawaiʻi as a second language anyway. Because the immersion kids, many of them are second language learners of Hawaiian anyway. So, I think the consideration here is that we're looking at transcript analysis in both languages. Is that what is that what the recommendation would be? Is that we look at their language arts grade in Hawaiian language and the English language grade, because that's kind of what's being suggested, and have no language assessment external, because that would be, I think that's moving on a path that those are separate requirements than what I think is coming here. Like there's an assessment framework being laid out for all languages, so it's fair for all, and I understand, but I think still, if we're looking at grades, it will only be for this year. Does that make sense? If we're only going to analyze transcripts for Hawaiian language arts and English language learning, it would be for 2017 only, because in 2018 we would want to mimic the requirements that are being laid out in this presentation. Does that make sense? Because I'm okay with that, but we have to understand that those are different requirements that we're putting on people, because I don't want it to be unfair as well, and I value these students as well. I just feel, though, that it is an intermediary step to do what we're proposing, but get to a different form and get to this framework of assessment for all languages and all students. Because we also have Hawaiian language learners in the high schools that take Hawaiian language as a world language. So we're trying to make sure that we're building a proper infrastructure for all of them, to accommodate for all of them, and we're not done yet. And we're including the universities as well. We have quite a bit of different infrastructural frames that we're trying to put into place at the same time. So this is one of them that will be complete by next year. So if we're suggesting to accommodate these students, it would just be a transcript analysis of grades in English and in Hawaiian language, or give them an actual version of a language assessment for English as a world language, which is what I think I was hearing, that they take a English language assessment. But that's what actual guidelines are. You can also do an oral proficiency interview and have achievement and proficiency levels in English. So, am I making sense? So analyze the transcripts of Hawaiian language arts and have an oral proficiency interview in English. And English be considered the world language. Does that make sense? So we can, I feel, but it would still be a 1 year temporary fix for something that needs to be implemented.
I'm just concerned about the concerns raised by Dr. Wilson.
Absolutely.
And his proposal is that the kids that are in Hawaiian immersion programs are having their language arts in Hawaiian, and then their English is actually their world language. So if they were passing with a B in both type of courses, that they should qualify, since you don't have any kind of an assessment for the biliteracy for the 2017 school year.
Yep.
So, I don't think that's an unreasonable request at this point.
No, okay. I think so the immersion students, and so for the Olelo Hawaiʻi students learning it as a second language, that would be next year. Is that clear? I'm just trying to build that. That's what's being said. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
I just want to make sure that the students know this, because you're saying that already there's some that are going to be, that haven't turned in their applications. So I want to make sure that kids all across the state have that opportunity to turn in their application. Yeah. And quickly. Okay, so we just want to make sure that all the kids are being treated fairly, and that's it.
Thank you for your consideration.
Any other questions? I'm sorry. I got sidetracked on that. Okay. Oh, you have a question?
No, I don't have a question. Dr. Halagao sent me an email, and she wanted me to say that I appreciate the work that the department did in pursuing the Ilocano assessment, and I know we made a big deal about it, but she indicated to me that
The department is working really hard, and I just wanted to echo our appreciation for that focused energy. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And I just wanted to remind that we were not disregarding Ilocano. We could not find a test that rose to that level. And so it took coordinating with larger states. Little Hawaii had to coordinate with California. They were unable to get a test. But when the two of us came together, then they were willing to do that. And so now we have created a test that can be used by 48 other states. And so I'm proud of Hawaii for that. And especially the partnership with University of Hawaii, which has been integral to the success.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Sandy, for all your hard work on all of this.
I don't know if she mentioned this point too, it was, and because of this partnership, we have not had to use any of our precious funds to do this.
Oh, that's even better.
It's what equity.
Okay, our next person, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mann.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, we are going to request categorical funding and try to pursue grants.
Well, we can always pursue grants, but I do not believe OSIS can request categorical funds for this, since the funding is in the weighted student formula. It is no longer available for us. So we could pursue grants. Right now, my office is paying for this. It was not funded, and we have found funds to do so. It has not impacted the schools at all. It has strictly come from my office. But at this time, categorical funds are not up for grabs, if you will, because that's how we are getting money to the schools.
So the grants and private funding, that's possible. Okay.
Okay, our next presentation is an update on implementation of Board Policy 105-15, multilingualism for equitable education. I would like to again call on Suzanne Mulcahy to introduce the presenter for this agenda item.
I would like to introduce to you Dr. Dion Nagato. She is an administrator in the Office of Curriculum Instruction and Student Support. She has been working ever since the multilingualism policy was passed, along with the committee of people to determine how to best implement multilingualism in our state. I do want to just provide a little bit of background. Sometimes people hear multilingualism and they automatically go to English language learners. And as you recall, if you were on the board at that time, we really passed a suite of policies, about 4 policies. 1, family engagement, seal of biliteracy, multilingualism, and then na hopena'au. And all of it was coming together to say, we value languages. We value multilingualism here in Hawaii, and we want to ensure that if you are born and learn to speak English, you also will have an opportunity to add another language and become bilingual or trilingual or however far you want to go. We also value people who come to our state and don't speak English, and we want to help them learn English while they maintain their first language, and then they can be bilingual. And the importance of keeping that first language and culture, because when we learn to speak English, there is nothing about that that says, and now I give up everything from my culture and my language, which is so precious. And then we are also saying, we also want to recognize those people who demonstrate that they can read, write, speak, and understand 2 languages by giving them the seal of biliteracy. So if you were going to choose a policy that kind of was overarching with this, it would be this multilingualism policy. Yes, it touches on seal of biliteracy. Yes, it touches on teaching English to those people who haven't learned it yet. But it is not an EL policy because that comes from the federal government. It is included in this, okay? Dr. Nagato, I believe you have a video to show first.
Yes. We're going to start with student voices, and you'll hear and identify some aspects of self-identity and social and economic capital related to multilingualism.
Ho'ohana wau I ka Hawaiʻi I nā wai apau a me ka nara apau I mea e ho'onoa kaka ai a I mea e ho'olauna ai I ma'a ka olelo Hawaiʻi a mākou.
やっぱり違う東洋語と日本語を聞いてるのは全然違うので、日本語を理解できるというのはとても大事なことだと思います。
You guys need language that will possibly develop inclusively.
これの会話は時間がencuentra todo el mundo. Gente tiene una demanda para otra gente que sabe hablar más de un idioma. Quieren alguien que sabe más de un idioma para que se pueda comunicar con más gente alrededor del mundo. Y no solo eso, pero te pagan más por eso, saber más de un idioma.
Podemos ir Tagalog kasi yung lingwahe ng Pilipinas.
He mea mai kai ka olelo Hawaiʻi ana no ka mea ma ko olelo Hawaiʻi ana a hoʻoe I ke o hiki ke oe I ka moʻolelo ma ke kone I ke ana kukuna. O ko ka helu ana I ka moʻolelo I nā helu e ma ka olelo haole o ko ka helu ana I nā helu e ma ka olelo Hawaiʻi. O ko helu ana I nā moʻolelo ma ka olelo Hawaiʻi a ko ma komo oe ka moʻolelo a ko maoli oe nā haʻawina.
Ina dongka saiki sai iknem dai kon na iknem yang ko fai sai. Jokobi kon na iknem e kon na dau.
We're very intentional about putting students at the front of this policy. And thank you for listening and watching. This is an update on policy 10514, multilingualism for equitable education. The policy had three main goals. The first around providing a range of language development programs for multilingual students. The second around making sure we had effective educators with the appropriate knowledge, skills, and materials. And the third around providing outreach supports to the families of multilingual students. There's also language in the policy around establishing a permanent advisory committee. And you heard some of the members speak today in their testimony. And then reporting annually to the board, which is what we're doing today. So Suzanne mentioned this earlier in the opening, and I just want to reiterate that this was intended to be an inclusive policy. So we are including several types of students in this policy. American Sign Language learners. It's an example of special needs students who speak more than one language. English learners, formerly called English language learners, in ESSA terms it's now called ELs. Hawaiian speakers and learners, they may be at immersion programs or they may be taking Hawaiian as a world language. Their goal is generally to maintain proficiency in both Hawaii's official languages. And then world language learners who are wanting to keep their proficiency in English and then add proficiency in another language. We don't have data necessarily on all of these student groups, but there is one data point that's common, and it's the language that students report as their home language. And you'll see that of the 180,000 students in the DOE, we have about 60% reporting that they speak a language other than English at home. We think that's a little bit low because the Hawaii Census Bureau data says that it's actually 25% that speak a language other than English at home. And there may be various reasons for why our rates are lower. But you also see a breakdown in this table that shows of those who speak a language other than English at home, 7% receive EL services, and then less than 1% are reporting Hawaiian and ASL respectively. We know that those receiving EL services, the top 5 languages are Ilocano, Tagalog, Chuukese, Marshallese, and Spanish. You have a hard copy of the multilingual, the implementation plan, and it's coming out to you now. And this was developed by the Multilingualism Policy Work Group. It includes input from 15 community, student, and teacher groups. We did focus groups through the fall, for the first semester of this school year. And then we also presented this plan to assistant superintendents and CAS's, complex area superintendents, in January. I'll just walk you through the plan that you're looking at. So the key has the different student targeted groups, ELs, world languages, Hawaiian speakers and learners, and ASL students. And you'll see that in the status box, there's a code. Green means it's completed, yellow means it's in progress and on track, orange is behind schedule, and red means it's going to require critical attention. You'll see that this plan spans 3 years, 3 school years. The grade boxes indicate the targeted time frame for that activity. So you'll see the 3 goals that I mentioned earlier. The first one around a range of language programs, the second around effective educators, and the third around outreach supports. And then we also added goals around the advisory committee, reporting to the board, and then seeking funding. So I'm going to give some updates on the goals as we go in order. The first goal, activity around language programs, here's an update on what we found out going on in the field by student group. So American Sign Language learners, we have about 49 students at the Hawaiʻi School for the Deaf and Blind. We also have an additional 70 students who are in total communication programs in all of the 8 districts. Back in June 2016, the Hawaiʻi Teacher Standards Board added ASL as a teacher license option. And then we also know that HSDB offers family ASL classes. As you saw the student say earlier, she uses ASL, but her parents don't. And so that's a challenge that our ASL students are addressing. For English learners, we know that a majority of our English language learner programs are reported as inclusionary support and sheltered instruction. Inclusionary support is generally pushed in where there's an EL staff member who's helping EL students in the classrooms. For sheltered instruction, they're focusing English language development instruction on the content areas.
I want to interject here so it can connect back to the testimony and a question earlier. I think this is the appropriate time. So some of you who have heard me speak before the board for the past 3 years as the CAL designee, as a CAS, and then as assistant superintendent, I have underscored the critical situation of having what Dr. Chapman D'Souza referred to as a highly qualified English learner teacher. And the reason that I have underscored that, and I have mentioned it over and over and over again, is because, as Vanessa Ott mentioned, in some schools, due to a principal and their community's decision on how to use weighted student formula, they have chosen to have PPTs under the direction of a teacher or a PTT, and so that 17-hour-a-week casual hire employee is responsible for compliance, all the documentation involved in teaching English to English learners, and providing instruction in the pull-out time and maybe in the push-in time. We're concerned because we believe that one of the reasons that 50% of our kids are not graduating with English learners is because they are not being taught by people who know how to teach English to English learners. And we also believe that there should be more professional development for the regular education teachers who have those students most of the time. So we have to do 2 things.